Hello SGO. In the next couple of technical sessions we're going to be talking about travelling around the guitar. We're so often preoccupied with the difficulty of the notes or working out which fingers we're going to use, the really tricky chord or how fast we're going to play, that we forget to concentrate as well on how we're actually getting from one place to the next, from one chord to the next, or from one finger to the next. And this is often the key for us to be able to play smoothly and musically. I'm going to concentrate on the right hand today, so we'll start off with the basic movement of your arm as you move across the strings. If you get in a comfortable playing position and with the finger in a curved playing shape, your eye finger is going to rest lightly against string 6, the back of your eye finger. And then the arm is going to push the finger across the strings, keeping to the same position on the string all the way across. What we don't want to be doing is moving into a ponticello or anywhere else, so we're keeping in the same position and then pulling back and letting your finger lightly brush the strings. Don't worry about the quality of the sound, it's just for reference. What you want to be thinking about is the feel of your forearm against the edge of the lower bout of the guitar. So you can feel the guitar underneath your arm, but you're just resting on the guitar. You're not pressing and holding the guitar to your body, or more importantly, you're not lifting your arm in order to be able to move. We can then make that movement slightly more complicated and move towards a freer movement by changing the shape. So what we're going to do now, start in the same position. As you move across the strings, this time you're going to head towards the tasto part of the string over the fingerboard. We then pull back across in that position and then go down and move to the ponticello and then pull across. And we can make that movement more continuous. What we're doing is we're making a figure of 8, and you're using your arm to do this. Just demonstrate that one more time. You can change direction. Remember, the sound doesn't matter. We don't want to be changing the hand position to accommodate the sound. We're just using that as a point of reference. Now we're going to look at moving along the string. To make different sounds in our pieces. So we're starting off over the sound hole, what we might call a natural position, and we're going to start off by playing 4 notes. We're then going to pause and move up to the ponticello position, back to the sound hole, and then along to tasto. So just using I and M, move to ponticello, over the sound hole, and up to tasto, and back. The pause is there to enable us to think about how the hand is moving, how the arm is moving. We don't want to be snatching at the movement or tensing up to move. We want to be relaxed and in control. When you've practiced that and you feel as if you know where you're going and how you're getting there, we can actually get rid of the gap. And this is great, this exercise, so you can really hear the difference in the sound. But it's just so simple. It just enables you to concentrate on one particular aspect of your technique, which you're then going to be able to absorb into your playing. Now those are big sudden changes of sound, so quite often we want that to be a little bit more subtle. So I'm going to add another position now. We're just going to play the note, 2 notes in each position. So starting off over the sound hole, move halfway, ponticello, and back halfway. direction. And you can hear the pause that I've got between each position, and during that pause you're feeling the movement of your arm against the guitar. Again, when you feel comfortable, we can join those positions up. And finally, when you're really feeling comfortable with the movement, we can experiment with continuous movement along the string so that your arm is in continuous motion. The important thing with this is to not restrict yourself to a certain number of notes or to a certain rhythm. So just start off alternating and then just gradually move your arm, trying to keep that rhythm. Keep it slow and steady. Obviously, the more notes you play, the easier the exercise is. If I now speed up a bit, so I'm moving further between each note as I become more experienced at the movement. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is still, I consider, travelling, but with a static hand. So we're concentrating on how we travel from finger to finger while the arm and the hand remain still. Another name for this, which you might have heard, is string crossing. So the natural way for us to move from string to string on the guitar, because of our playing position, is if, for example, I'm using strings 3 and 2, we're going to play string 3 with the I finger and string 2 with the M finger. And that feels the most comfortable way of moving. If you put your I finger and your M finger on the strings, you can sit there quite happily. I would call that a forward crossing. Now what I want you to do is just swap those two fingers around, so that you now have your I finger on the B string and your M finger on the G string. And it automatically feels less comfortable because it doesn't follow the natural shape of our hand while we're playing. And I'm going to call this a reverse string crossing. Now, in music, because we've got so many notes to play and we're always moving between strings, we're going to be needing this technique. So it's a really important one to practice. So if we just go back to a forward crossing, so we're starting with I and M, and we're just going to play with 4 beats in a bar, 2 bars worth of I and M. And now we're going to change, so M is now playing G, and I is playing B. So my fingers have changed, but the strings didn't change. And I would always repeat a bar at least twice. So that's the minimum, and then as many times as you would like. We're going to try that with M and A. So M on string 3 to start off with, A on string 2, that's our forward crossing. And then reverse, A on string 3, M on string 2. And then I also want to do this with I and A. So I is playing string 3, A string 2. A on string 3, I on string 2. So the setup really for that is that we want our hand in such a position that we're able to change the fingers without having to stretch or curl under the hand. Now we're going to return to that in a minute after we've just looked at some of the other ways of moving across the strings. So when we're moving around the strings of the guitar, I've given the movement 3 different labels. So we've got hopping, we've got jumping, and we've got walking, which involves the string crossing that we've just been talking about. So we'll start off with the hopping. This is really relating back to the first exercise that we did today, which was moving across the strings. And we're now combining that movement with actually playing the strings as well. So you're just going to use one finger at a time, starting on string 3, since this is the most natural place for that for your fingers to be. Starting on string 3, I finger, we're just going to play across to string 1, travel back up to string 6, and back to string 3. Okay, and I would repeat that. And what you can see is that my finger shape, the playing shape of my finger, stays the same. Whichever string I'm on, I've still got that same shape. I'm not having to stretch or curl in because I'm using my arm to carry my finger to the different strings. I would always recommend doing these exercises with different fingers. Each finger has a different feel. We want each finger to be strong and balanced in the movement around the guitar. So M finger next, starting on the G string. Whoops. And then again I would repeat, but I'm going to move on to the A finger now. On the website, in the SGO section of our website, we have a PDF document download to accompany the class, and you will see a lot of these exercises written out using notes to make it a little bit clearer. So we're also going to use the thumb for this exercise. So the thumb starting on string 3 in exactly the same way as your fingers. And I think when you're playing with your thumb, you're almost more aware of the movement of your arm. Not quite sure why, but so it's a really good one to do in the hopping exercise. Okay, now what we're going to do is the jumping exercise. And the reason for this is that we're not always moving to the next door string. So this has two purposes really. One is for bigger jumps, but it also simulates what it's like when we're actually walking with more fingers. So we're going to start on string 6 for this one, with your I finger, and we're going to play string 6, 4, 2, 1, 3, 5, and again, 6. Now, obviously in this exercise we're much more aware of the movement of the arm because it has further to go in a shorter space of time. Let's try that with the M finger. And the A finger. And finally with your thumb. Now we're going to move on to walking across the strings, and you can use a number of different pairs of fingers for this. So we're starting off with I and M. Each finger is going to play a string once, starting with the I finger, and as we move across we're going I to M and then to I, so that we are using the forward and the reverse string crossing alternating as we move across the strings. When we get to string 1, we play string 1 again with the I finger and walk back. I think it's also really important to then reverse the direction. So we're going to start with the M finger this time. Change to the M finger on the first string and come back. Even though this uses the same sort of movements as we did in the first exercise, it feels different to start on a different finger. And there's always going to be times in your music when it is necessary to start on a different finger. So we do that with M and A and with I and A as well. And then we're also going to use the thumb in combination with each of the three fingers. So this exercise using the thumb actually combines the walking feel with the jumping. Because as we use the thumb and then the I finger, thumb is going to play string 6, I finger is going to play string 5. But I cannot move smoothly because I need to keep in one position to be able to do the PI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay there, PI, and then move to the 4th string with my thumb and to the 2nd string with my thumb there. So we've got a combination of walking and jumping in that exercise. And coming back the other way. And we do the same thing with thumb and M and thumb and A, mainly because that's a less comfortable combination of fingers, so we need to practice all of those combinations. It's P and M and then P and A. And then we can actually extend that feeling of jumping a little bit more by using more fingers. So I'm just going to go on to using PIM. So I play string 6, 5 and 4 with PIM, and then I'm moving to 3, 2 and 1 with PIM again. So I've got that jump, and then I'm just going to reverse it, so I'm going M, I, P on the way back. So here we go, starting on string 6 with P. P, I, M, P, I, M, and then backwards M, I, P, M, I, P. Do the same thing with M and A. P, M, A, P, M, A, and then A, M, P, A, M, P. And then finally with PIA. P, I, A, P, I, A, I, P. What I like to try and do with the exercise is cover as many options as possible, and then what you can do as well is relate the exercise to your piece of music. If there's another particular fingering that needs to move across the guitar, then you can use that fingering in the exercise. And what we're going to do to finish off with actually is use a small extract from a study by Villa-Lobos, study number 1, which requires your right hand to move very smoothly across the strings all the way through the piece. It's on the PDF document that I've done. I've written it out in a slightly more simple way. He does use an E minor chord to start off with, but you can also use open strings. I would recommend that if you want to concentrate on your right hand only. So what we've got here is a combination of movement of the whole arm and then movement within the hand. So he uses this fingering. So it's P, I, P, I, P, M, I, A, M, A, I, M, P, I, P, I, P. So I just speed that up a little bit. Sorry. Excuse my tuning, I've just changed my strings. So that is a movement, and we can speed that up so that we're getting the smooth movement. It's a good one to practice, but it's also good to experiment with different fingerings. So for example, I could just use P and I. Another thing that I can do, and this is a good way of also practicing with the combining with the jumping and walking, is I can actually use I and M even though I'm not using adjacent strings. do this quite quickly if I've practiced the way I move and the way my arm moves. You're not restricted by a certain pattern because of the strings you've got to play if you've practiced all the options. Thank you very much for joining me today. Next time we'll be talking about travelling with the left hand.